When did you realize you were attractive? When a few of my female friends told me, I used to have such a crush on you in high school. In fact, a lot of girls did. I never knew about it, so I never made any passes at them, and went through high school thinking I looked like a potato. The same thing happened to me too. The numbers started to add up when I would talk to former classmates back in my hometown. Also, this girl I used to have a huge crush on, that I assumed was out of my league, was really into me. I was just too naive to see it. Anyways, that experience was a huge booster for me. My dad told me a story about a girl in his school. She was stunning, apparently. All the boys wanted her, but no one was brave enough to ask her out. Eventually my dad decided what was the worst that could happen and asked her out. She jumped at the chance. She was convinced she was hideous because none of the other boys ever asked her out, but all her friends got dates. So Dad took her to the movies. Unfortunately for Dad, but fortunately for me, this opened the floodgates, and suddenly every boy in school was asking her out, and poor Dad was forgotten. When my Nana told me how handsome I am, she's always telling me that. My grandma was 102, suffering from dementia. One day she didn't recognize me, and my aunt told her, "This is your grandson, the son of your son," to which my grandma replied, "No wonder he is so handsome." And my grandmother always told me that I have inner beauty. When I was a kid, I never thought of myself as attractive. The boys at school, and the girls, made it very clear that I was a buck-toothed freak. We went on holiday to Cape Town December 1998. I was 13 then, and we were in a restaurant one day after a few days of sun and swimming, and I went to the bathroom. As I was washing my hands, I looked up into the mirror, and suddenly my face looked different. Guess the tan paid off well against sun-bleached blonde hair. I just stared at myself and wondered if it really was me. I didn't recognize myself. Shrugged it off and went back to my family, but I then started noticing that grown-ass men were staring at me. It freaked me out. Boys started wanting to hang out with me on the beach. It freaked me out. I was never hot, and I never wanted to be. But that was the day I realized that I wasn't a total troll. Realizing that men old enough to be your dad find you attractive in your early teens was such a jarring experience. It really made me start to realize that not every adult is someone you can trust. I was lucky in that none of them ever talked to me. I just got the occasional stare. When I wasn't attractive anymore. This is all too true. I never really obsessed about my looks, but I took it as given that I was kinda ugly, and that any romantic success I may have had came down to charisma. Now, at 38 years old, I see pictures of me in my mid-20s and holy shit, I was beautiful. Your 58-year-old self will think the same about your 38-year-old pictures. I realized I was kind of attractive when people that I thought were attractive seemed romantically interested in me. I wasn't a good-looking or cool kid, but when I hit 16 I started getting way more attention from girls that I thought were hot. When I hit 19 I knew I had become really attractive because, and this is something that I was only able to recognize because I'd seen it happen with a buddy of mine who had always been a good-looking guy. People would talk about it, my good looks, as if it were fact or a foregone conclusion. I think that's when you know someone's really good looking. When you go out to the club and other guys assume that the hottest girls are interested in you, or girls assume you've got a long list of other girls lining up for a date, or people say things like, "You should be a model." Another big one from when I was younger, early 20s, was older women and gay men will just straight up say it. I think it's because they know you're probably not interested in them, so the uncomfortability of rejection is taken off the table so they can be very open, but yeah, they'll just blurt it out like it ain't a thing. I've had to put less and less effort into conversations over the years. This is how attractive people can become shallow and uninteresting. And frankly, unattractive. In line with that, when people continue to show interest despite you being completely disinterested in conversing with them. When I was told I was the highest quality meat at the gym by an absolute babe, I felt so objectified, it was great. That's the highest hotness award given to civilians. Only over the last year or so, when multiple people started telling me, "You could do better," when showing pictures of exes that I deemed to be attractive. When reasonably attractive girls asked me out. When my mates started telling me that I'm a good-looking dude. I didn't have my first kiss till I was nearly 21. I was a late bloomer and definitely not attractive in school. I still don't entirely believe it, to be honest. But enough people are telling me it that I'm starting to. You might be late, but it's never too late. Unless you die. I'm not attractive, but a girl did scream, "Hey, you're cute!" at me while I was pumping gas the other night. I am sure she was drunk, but I'll be riding that ego boost for at least the next 3 months. Maybe, just maybe, you're actually cute and the booze just gave her the guts to shout it loud. When I heard my little son, 6, tell his friend, "No, I do not look like my mummy, I look like my dad, we are both handsome." Oh, this is cute. Maybe not so much for mom, though. In high school, my friends and I stumbled across a rally for 9/11 truthers and started to argue with them. At one point, one of the truthers got fed up and told us to go away and get a life. He turned to me and said, "You're a good-looking guy. Why don't you go get a girlfriend?" It's rare to get that kind of compliment from someone who's pissed at you. You must be fine as fuck to hear that from someone angry at you. When I was a teenager, girls would giggle around me. I thought they were making fun, but one day I was hanging out with a friend and it happened. I wanted to leave, he asked why, then thought I was joking. Brief confusion, sudden realization, total upheaval of my entire paradigm. Edit for clarity. I wanted to leave because I thought they were making fun of me. He thought I was joking when I said, "Those girls over there are making fun of me," because if I had actually made eye contact, I would see that they weren't looking at me with disdain but with interest. Wait, do guys do this too, or were they still making fun of me? In my experience with my dude friends, especially in school, we'll be making fun of him for liking you. Like pointing it out and laughing about that. So the looks or laughing probably means someone over there likes you. And you will usually notice who, because he is usually the flustered one not laughing with friends. Still waiting. I have a really vague perception of how I look. I honestly don't know. But I thought I was ugly right up until I reached my early 20s, because boys wouldn't approach me. I think it's because I look a lot younger than I actually am, so when I reached 21, I finally looked legal. I was approached by easily the most handsome man I've ever met, and we dated for 2 years. That was a massive confidence booster for me. So although I still don't know how attractive I actually am, that was the first time I realized I wasn't ugly. When a guy who incessantly bullied me as a kid for being fat tried to hit on me as an adult, he didn't recognize me, turned him down in front of all of his friends. Best feeling ever. That sounds so satisfying. Did you reference the bullying? Or just pretend that you didn't know who he was? Nah, I never let him know that we have a history. He just thinks I wasn't interested and can only assume it was based on his appearance at that time. To be fair, maybe he's changed and is actually a nice guy now. I just have no interest in finding that out. I looked pretty cute as a baby. That didn't last long. As a more serious answer to the question, getting my first girlfriend helped a lot. I had no idea before that what about me would have been even remotely interesting to other people. But she was incredibly sweet and affirming, and knew exactly what to say to make me feel better about myself. Because of her, I started seeing how much progress I'd made socially, how much some of the things I'd been trying to do to get myself in better shape physically were actually paying dividends, stuff like that. Now that that relationship has ended, I find myself doubting some of those things again from time to time, but I also realize that that could also just be me being self-defeating. A really cute girl in my psych class put her hand on my shoulder in a conversation once, gave it a squeeze, and then glanced at my shoulder. She made this little, oh, sound, her eyes kinda glazed, and she started just kinda holding her hand there, lightly squeezing. I was pretty uncomfortable about it at this point and asked if she was okay. She just sorta smiled and said, "Yeah, much better thanks," pats my shoulder and turns away. I asked another girl what that was about, and she just said, "Really? Girls like hot guys." When small magnetic objects started clinging to me as I walked past. Well, I guess it all started the first time I went through the 2nd grade. I caught my reflection in a spoon while I was eating my cereal, and I remember thinking, "Wow, you're ridiculously good looking, maybe you could do that for a career." My dad started pointing out how many girls were checking me out whenever we were in public. I was always oblivious to it, mostly because I was in a long-term relationship and never really cared. Initially I laughed at the notion, but a few of my girlfriends have started to point out the same. Very recently. Was out at a trivia night with a group of randoms from Meetup. The waitress was super hot, and literally ignored the rest of the table whenever she came by, asking dude at the end of the table what they wanted to eat while still looking right past them at me, for example, and then made a point of coming to sit down with me while I finished up my drink after they all left. That was a nice feeling. Bullying, sexual harassment, weird relatives staring. I wish someone had just told me. When I looked back at my school years and all the times girls would run to me just for a hug, or the time in schools when my groups consisted of mostly girls, or when I was in school struggling to decide which girl I liked most because so many of them were being super nice to me. I went to a gay bar and drank for free. Moved away from my home country, Mexico. Over there I'm an ugly shit. In the USA I'm a charming Latino, and on Asia I'm a Western oddity, a Latino. When did you realize you were attractive? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.